Okay, we're live. Welcome, everybody. And thank you for joining us today. I'm Tanya Alfonso, VP of North America, and I'm joined here by our CEO, Roi Cohen. Hey, Roi.
It's Tanya.
It's hard to believe that we are already in December, and very festively in December here with our cherry blossoms, or not cherry blossoms, but anyways, I can't remember what these are called. So it's hard to believe that it's already December. This has been a year that has gone by so quickly, and we've had our successes across everybody in this community. I think, we can agree, successes, we've had our challenges. And one thing I think we can all agree on is that it has been a year of such rapid evolution in this space. And so we thought that this was a good opportunity to bring the community together, the Wolfpack community. So if you're out there, say hi in the comments, chat, and just bring everybody together to have a candid discussion. We're going to do something a little different today. It's not going to be slides, demos, big presentation. It's really just going to be a fireside chat with our CEO, Roi. So with that, have a good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Grab a cup of coffee or a tea. Maybe it's happy hour where you are.
Wine or beer, yeah.
Or wine, exactly. And we'll get started. So first thing I was gonna thought we'd start off with, Roi, was just introductions. And in a very vicarious spirit, we like to have fun here. So I love this theme of living vicariously. And it's really, what are you doing when you don't have the CEO hat on, and what are what would we want to switch places with you for a day?
Wow, it's a tough one. Well, I'm not sure I'm going to be that much of marketing, why you should live vicariously through me. But today I'm like a father of three. My oldest is 4, so 3 boys at home. So it's basically CEO and father in a full-time job. But generally speaking, in terms of things I used to do or would aspire to do back was rock climbing. Back in the days, I was practicing quite a lot, climbing in Israel, Thailand, Greece, whenever. So it was super fun. Also, you can call it hacking to some extent. Definitely a passion of mine from early days in the military service through even now, I would say. I think the excitement of getting your hands around a malware, well coded, well designed by an adversary, disassembling and really understanding what goes on, what went on their mind. I think this is a true excitement. It's almost you can always also relate to the attacker to some extent. Sometimes you get so familiar with them, you can kind of see how they evolve. Sometimes you also root for them, you cheer them, like how they just got over that and were able to penetrate. So definitely, analyzing, coding, hacking, climbing, you name it. That's kind of my passion.
That is definitely things we can only aspire to. I could never be a hacker myself or out there, not that technical. That's awesome. And, now think about Vicarious. It started in 2016. And that is one area to be vicarious. I think we can all live vicariously through that. You started a company in 2016. It's now in growth phase, rapid growth phase. So maybe share with us a little bit. I'd love to hear, and for the people who are listening in today, the journey of how it all started and how we got here.
Definitely. It was a while back when we started. Definitely a different market, different theme. I think that being said, still some things are very much kind of the same. Kind of the thing that we have identified, when we started Vicarious was that vulnerabilities is and going to be a big challenge. Before founding Vicarious, I personally worked for CyberArk. I was leading the malware research practice there. And I think kind of the thing that resonated for me was seeing that even, let's call it in a fairly limited resources company, we were able to find and disclose vulnerabilities, let's call it on a timely manner. And the idea was that if we with limited resource can do so, probably hackers, right, that are being paid day in and day out, they have the resources and the time to basically find vulnerabilities and to exploit as needed when needed. So it kind of creates an unfair advantage for the attackers, almost like timelessly. Okay, every time time along the day, they can just find problems and try to exploit it en masse. So when we started the company, we had like this idea that if those hackers got the unfair advantage of just finding an exploit and finding these unsuspecting targets and hacking them, why not trying to predict what those targets are going to be, and then trying to protect them beforehand. So we started the company, with a big dream of, we're going to change the world with this kind of product. And as many startups do, we pivoted. So we started back in office in a small city, three very enthusiastic founders. And we been migrating the company throughout Israel. Then at some point we also went abroad. We were living in San Francisco for 6 months. And we got a lot of feedback. I think one of the things that really made us grasp the pain in the market was just developing, shipping the product, failing, reiterating, backing like again and again until we landed where we are today. And it's funny, that we at some point we had we did like a competition or questionnaire, how many offices we had. I think on average, at least in the first 2 years, we switched an office every 3 months. Okay, one of which was in the middle of the market in Jerusalem. The other one was in a shack in Givatayim, and another one was an apartment in San Francisco. So it always changed. And but I think
was this because you were moving, or was this because you're just changing offices so much?
We were moving. We changed offices for we didn't raise much. We can quite almost bootstrap the company for the first couple of years, and it was a matter of necessity. So basically, I wouldn't say that joining an acceleration program was kind of a thing that we aspired. It was mostly trying to lurk on the free office space. So we, just search for places that were willing to accept us and, find a place with a good connectivity and just walk from there. Starbucks was one of them for some time.
Wow.
So yeah, this is how we started. And yeah, we've been through a lot, as we don't disclose, but we've been through a lot. I think for me, setting those milestones throughout the journey was always, try to self-motivate yourself. For me, it was like, first of all, hey, let's just get someone to buy it, the first customer. And then let's see it's kind of repeatable. And then let's get for the first 10 and the first $500,000 or million and so on and so forth. So setting those targets and achieving them, I think this was also kind of, an exciting path, to the outside journey that we experienced.
And here we are, 2025, the tail end of 2025, and I will say, well on our way, past Series B at this point, established organization. When you look back at 2025, what would you say in this year are some of the accomplishments you're most proud
of? First and foremost, I would say building the team. It's basically you and the team, all of the special individuals who are making Vicarius. I think this is one of the biggest achievements, I can say, being able to formalize a super talented, super enthusiastic group of people that are working for this mission, to help organizations globally to fend off attacks, to remediate exposure. So I think building and retaining the team is kind of the most and the number one achievement I would accredit for the company, for me, I would say. But aside from that, I think in terms, if we talk about the company, obviously becoming a formidable contender in the space. I think, first of all, the partnerships that we were able to form, whether you or the other leaders in the company, are definitely something we take great pride of, and it does seem to work and to resonate in the market. So if we are talking about tech alliances, such as the partnership we formed with CrowdStrike or Atera, whether it's working with the hyperscalers like Amazon, AWS, and even partnering with Paxate and doing fairly well, working very well with them. I think for us, it's also a signal of what we are doing works and makes sense, and the fact that these great companies are choosing to partner with us, and we have many more, by the way. It's really about picking our battles. I think this is kind of speaking out loud, and not surprisingly, I think us being picked and recognized by both IDC and Gartner. There was a Magic Quadrant published, I think, a month ago for the first time for exposure management, and we are in. I think we are by far the smallest company there, and I think this really speaks out loud, the fact that we are there, and also multiple other reports.
Yes, that was a big accolade for the year, something I think many of us at the company were cheering for and rallied around for sure. And no surprise, I'm very biased to working with our partners in the channel. We talk about that a lot, of course.
Of course.
Huge impact in what we do. I'll come back a second when you were talking about the growth of the company and how it all started. There was a saying when I got here that was like, we don't just tell you what sucks, we fix it too, right? Because you did talk about remediation. And it is something that has resonated, that actually turned into a more eloquent statement of what our mission is, right? We actually don't just find the problems, we fix them too. And I think about that, about what you do, like what we do as a company of bringing real value to clients and real world impact, right? So to clients, when you think about that, and again, this past year, and just reflecting, what stands out most to you in like the way that you brought value to your customers?
I think I'll share a story. Now we can talk about reducing the mean time to remediate it, the mean time to detect to virtually zero. But I think like a real life story, I think it happened, let's call it 6, 7, 8 months ago, where every now and then, aside of the fact, being a CEO, sometimes that's what I volunteer to help companies recover from incidents. So one of them was at a hospital, which got affected. Basically, they got breached. There was somewhat of a ransomware attack, but also some data leakage happening. And as you know, when companies are being breached, usually there's a chain of events. The companies usually, if they have cyber insurance, they call the insurer. They are being assigned with a company which helps them to kind of orchestrate the incident. So you can call it like a project management. They can bring along different domain experts or companies who specialize in different elements. And sometimes they also bring along vendors if there is a value to add that. So we do that every now and then. I think the past 2 years I've been involved at least in 10 different incidents. And there are many more we couldn't make it. And the reason that we were called upon was surprisingly a known vulnerability being exploited. Now, that vulnerability was known and had a patch, and I would say even the organization was aware of that. But as life shows, they were not able to deploy the patch. I would say even after the incident, they couldn't deploy it. There were some technical restrictions. Again, it's a hospital. They got lots of limitations. It was simply not possible. And I think one of the first things that organizations want to do after such an incident is, usually there's, not usually, but many cases there are like complete shutting the organization, connecting from the internet, disconnecting it, and then trying to work on the dark, and then very gradually opening the organization back and connected to the internet. And in that case, we were brought to help them identify the threat using VRX, using our tool. But more importantly, they had a suspicion where the issue is. And we came and, we don't only patch, we also do additional mitigations. So in that case, we were able to get them back on their feet using the alternative mitigation. In that scenario, it was the patches protection. And we're able to get them back on their feet and basically, saving patients' life, because the hospital in that few hours was offline, doctors and nurses, going with notebooks and registering stuff. Some of the machines, like I think the MRI or the CT, were completely off. So yeah, it was chaotic. And for us to be able to get patients back to treatment, basically getting the company back online and fending off, isolating or securing those exploited areas definitely was something that I take as great pride. The fact that we are, it's real stories and real people that we are helping, and you don't necessarily need to be breached or hacked to get that value, obviously. So this is where we saw the real impact on like almost immediately. But obviously, I think for us as a company, also the idea of kind of bringing that enterprise radio, enterprise capabilities to the mass market. I think this was where, even when we started the company, this was kind of the idea. You don't need to be a super, funded or well-resourced organization to have, kind of top of the line security. So this was kind of the main value and impact we do see.
Yeah, it's even that proactive versus reactive. I think vulnerability management has traditionally been very reactive, and getting to the root of the problem or mitigating ahead of time is, the transition to proactive. But the healthcare space, very big here. Obviously, like they say, it's really a matter of life and death. It really comes down to that. So yeah, thanks for sharing that story. Let's switch gears into industry focus, right? Just broader in the industry. One of the things, like I mentioned at the very beginning, rapid evolution in this space. And even Gartner came out with a new category in this space. And so the vulnerability management category has evolved. And now they talk of it as exposure management category, and they have CTEM and all this. So how do you see that shift and as it's evolved? What's your take on that? Vulnerability management to exposure management?
Yeah. Maybe first let's talk about the why that shift is happening. Look, 20 years ago, when going, what was the IT layout of an organization? You go to the office, you have like there's a desktop, you have the keyboard. Somewhere in the corner of the room, there's the cabinet with a switch, and it connects somewhere in the dark to a server, and that's basically the company. Everything was on-prem, local, connected internally. And at those days, finding and fixing vulnerabilities was easy. Basically, you go, you plug another device to that switch. You go plug, which scans the network. Maybe another device which goes and patches, and the volume was very low, and it was easy, fairly manageable. And as things evolved, with the sheer volume of issues and the complexity of attacks and even the complexity of the fixes, the fact you have a patch alone doesn't mean you can go and deploy it, as many cases, as also in the previous story. So the market is evolving to a point of consolidation, which is a must. There is a global shortage of people, of engineers, which are skilled and capable of fending off attacks. And by the way, this is why we see a big trend towards service providers and MSSPs, because companies cannot hire, retain, and train those individuals, those engineers. So the market is going towards consolidation and a unified view of finding, understanding, or prioritizing, and eventually fixing those issues. And as the pace of the attacks and the average time to exploit goes down from a couple of months to a few days, as the last report was showing, eventually it really is geared towards automation. It's inevitable. If we are going to extrapolate the numbers, maybe even in a few years, we're going to see the average time to exploit goes down for a day, maybe hours, who knows. So automation is definitely inevitable, and consolidation is inevitable, because having two different systems which are not well communicating with each other and trying to train and integrate all the time, I think it's challenging. So I think this is why we are seeing that transition to exposure management. I think Gartner, I'll give them a lot of credit, but I think they only kind of named already an existing trend. We, as a vendor, we doubled our customers base in the past year. So we have, I think, a lot of data points we see in the market. I think you see it for yourself. We see more and more RFIs and RFPs which are looking for a singular, unified solution to map the issues, and eventually, kind of fix stuff. So this is what we see, the shift in the market and in the reasons behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has been so much has been going on there, and yes, we have seen the shift of or our growth of customers. I'll just give us our plug at Vicarious. We're up to 1,000 customers. We're across 70 countries, 150 partners. So yes, we do get a lot of this feedback, which is great. When I think about these organizations, right? So like you mentioned, and it was kind of interesting to think about how it was so straightforward before. You would plug it in, it was on-prem, and then IT would be addressing this. I feel for clients now when I talk to them, and they're broader organizations, and it's been an amalgamation of mergers and acquisitions, right? So they're a company that's grown through M&A activity. And on the front end, these companies, of course, they grow and they have solutions that they offer. On the back end, there's still a lot of different functional separate teams of IT. And then you have the security team. So on one side, you have the team that's finding everything, who we talk to a lot. And on the other side, you've got all these different disparate teams, not necessarily coordinated in their efforts, that are trying to fix the problems, right? So it's that whole like throw it over the fence, try to fix it. If you're putting yourself in the modern security leader or IT leader today, I feel for them, because it's like they have to bring together this whole piece. And you talked about consolidation too. So like, what do you think is shifting for them, or like what has to happen for these organizations? We have a solution. It's not we can't lead a movement, but like, what do you think is happening with these organizations?
First of all, I think you hit the nail on the head here. Like, yeah, exactly. This is what we see in the market. I have a story just on that specific scenario. For those of you who remember Log4Shell incident, let's call it, or vulnerability a few years ago, I actually have been working with a prospect at the time. And when that, we were just demoing, showing them kind of what we can do. And I actually participated in the meeting where the CISO brought to the room the different domain owners. So they had, it's a big organization, okay? They had a director in charge of the cloud. So that's one. They had a director in charge of the IT, at least the Windows boxes. They had another director in charge for the Mac and Linux, basically, domain. Mm-hmm. And one which was, kind of more delicate areas, I don't know, the CEO or whatever. And basically, they all assembled, came to the CISO's office, trying to discuss the options for how they're going to address the Log4Shell. And what they heard was, first of all, like the very diverse strategy. Everyone kind of crafted their own playbook, and some of them just said, "Hey, we don't have anything we can do for the time being. Let's regroup in a day or in a week." Others, suggested some ideas, but it was very scattered. Okay, I think we cannot even look at IT as a singular department. As you said, sometimes multiple system owners, multiple stakeholders that you need to take into consideration. And when you also relay the responsibility to them, I think the inevitable outcome would be a very diverse and not necessarily homogeneous strategy. And I think it's a real pain, eventually for first, I think the challenge of knowing if you are affected. I think that attack surface today is enormous. It's not only, it's well past servers and desktop. It's also the cloud or the mobile or identity or brand. There are so many areas it affects you. And then once you need to act, and you need to act in an effective way, and you need to validate it, actually apply it. So I think the responsibility for today's security leaders is enormous. It's challenging. And as I said before, I think the inevitable conclusion is automation is of a necessity. I think trying to hit with a hammer multiple nails. Okay, now I have visibility with a scanner. Fine, that's done. Now I have a patching for Mac. Cool. Now I have a patching for Windows. Great. And trying to craft a strategy of a very scattered tech stack is challenging. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I'm saying it's challenging. It's expensive to maintain and to train. And yeah, so
there's so much I want to unpack, or so many questions I have related to this. So that's the security side with the modern security leader, right? Shifting to the vendor side, we have seen a big emergence of vendors. So we talked Vicarious since 2016, probably even considered still a new player on the block, right? But there are even newer players on the block that are coming out. And then, of course, there's those that have been around from the early scanning days. So as you see this, we need consolidation at the level of the organization so that they can have a unified approach. What do you see, and how do you think that might impact what's happening on the vendor side of like different organizations offering solutions, consolidation, working together? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think first of all, as said, there is a lot of hype and activity in the space, whether it is fundraising or acquisitions or partnerships, and it's very much needed. I always say I'm glad that our market is so active, because it means there is such a demand. I always call it like even a rigid or fixed demand. It's something which is almost everlasting. It's one of the top 3 or 4 things in the the security or IT stack of any organization. Antivirus, firewall, patching, and vulnerability management. It's like very fundamental stuff. And we see those incumbents, which some of them go to the direction of all in with the integration, saying, what, there is an existing tech stack, let's rely on that and try to digest and optimize. Others try to do try to be those arms and legs, do the actual actions, to scan and to patch and do whatever. As for us, we do the hybrid approach. I think kind of a mind shift we also experienced throughout the years was not acting as a closed garden, but also opening the platform for integration. So we'll discuss also about what is coming up in 2026 next year. But generally speaking, I think this is something we also realize that while for SMB it may resonate and the SSPs obviously, but also when going off market, we need to play nicely with the existing tech stack. So in the space and what we see in the market, definitely it's going to be more startups emerging. Some of them will, given that the attack surface and the exposure, domain is so broad, there are going to be always new vendors covering those new domains. We had like serverless a few years ago, container security, all of that. So there's going to be the incumbents are going to focus on that, and some of them are going to be acquired, some of them are going to be partnering. And there's going to be the big players who try either to buy or build the way downstream.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. And do you think it's just an enterprise situation? In other words, like, do you think it's only for large enterprise that this is a problem? And you commented on it before with the lack of talent that there is, right? There is really a shortage of talent in the cybersecurity space. And we do have a lot of our MSP partners that are here today. And what do you think is happening? Like, they serve the SMB market. Do you think the SMB market is, at risk here and should be really concerned about vulnerability management?
Yeah, of course. I think eventually an IP is an IP. When you have, there are so many experiments done by super talented professionals where they put a server online with open ports and known vulnerabilities, and it's you open a clock and you see when it's hacked. I think we also did this experience a few years ago with a vulnerable MongoDB. So in the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you are a small retail shop with a handful of POSs or servers and it's open to the internet, or you're an enterprise eventually for an automated scanner and soon to be or already is agentic scanner which finds and exploits at scale. It doesn't matter if you're an SMB or an enterprise. So it's definitely a cross-size, cross-market challenge, I would say. Yeah, it's really those tools don't distinguish between one and the other. Obviously, for targeted attacks, the enterprise is far more appealing of a target. I can say on the previous point you've mentioned, I was involved in one of the biggest pension funds here, basically supervising, let's call it 20,000 devices. And I agree. I think that for us, for instance, it was very hard to find people, even back then, to find skilled people that are able to plug and play, gonna come in, gonna take care of stuff, and gonna unfold our security strategy. and I think it's getting, I wouldn't say getting worse, but numbers do show that it does get worse. And we see, I think something which really surprised us was that we see even enterprise start to relay that business of security and to some extent IT to service providers, to MSSPs and MSPs. So I think this is a shift that we see, from our global reach. That it's no longer an SMB saying, let's focus on the margins, let's outsource that, and someone else gonna take care of that. We see also enterprises going towards that direction, and we see more domains now being offered as a service. So for us, for instance, I think traditionally finding vulnerabilities and fixing them wasn't a domain of specialty. I think this is a fairly new kind of greenfield domain where we partner with those service providers, and it seems to resonate.
Yeah, I agree. It's not just taking the talent, but it's also by outsourcing it. My take is that by outsourcing it, you're also helping develop a strategy, because just the outsource in and of itself is creating the strategy. And partners that they outsource this to are using playbooks and they're using CIS controls, and so they have their own playbooks that they can run this by. Otherwise, the company has to own all that and then implement it, which is more complicated. Yeah, I have to ask, because you talked about agentic. You mentioned the word. It is a huge topic. Part of one of the reasons why there has been such rapid evolution this year. RSA, agentic AI, was the new buzzword. Last year it was AI. Now it's agentic AI. Where do you see this playing? Right, there's a lot of part of the new companies on the scene in this space are specifically talking about how they're using agentic AI, or how they're bringing broad visibility and taking away manual capabilities by going through this path with AI. Where do you see this playing for us in the industry when it comes to vulnerability management?
Clearly, it's the future. Now the question is it the near future or the far, somewhere down the years? Time will tell. I think it really depends on the specific industry that you are in. There are some domains that are more tolerant for hallucinations and issues, I would say, versus the others. I think in our domain, remediation is clearly going to be the last area that companies are going to adopt agentic, simply because even if they have the patch available in their hands, then they're not deploying it. So automating it, let alone having an agent to make the decision, it's gonna be there at some point, but it will take time to build the trust. I think this is kind of the key word here: how agentic can kind of increase the trust and the assurance that what's the output is something that you can rely on, and kind of relay that responsibility. So it's not something that I see immediate. Definitely, there are other domains that are more you can get that immediate impact. I think for us, taking a step back from agentic and just talking about AI, I think for us, AI is definitely a force multiplier, whatever comes to content generation. In our space, in vulnerability or exposure management and remediation, I think content is king. In the sense of, look, when a vulnerability hits the news, it doesn't mean that on the very same day, all of the scanners they know how to find it, okay? Some of them got their own research team, some of them got feeds, but eventually someone needs to craft a recipe, what's the prerequisite for that issue to be found, okay, and feed the engine that scans and eventually identify it. Same goes, by the way, with the patching. So eventually someone needs to craft or find the package and the different arguments and build a script or a flow that eventually goes and deploys that. So Gen AI has great impact or value it can add here. First, for the discovery, basically crafting those signatures automatically, autonomously, without the human factor, or co-piloting at least an existing research team. And same goes with remediation. And as for us, we are using Gen AI to faster find those issues and also to faster craft those fixes. What I would say, I find it hard to believe still that customers will go and deploy blindly, trust blindly AI generated content. This is why, for us at least, we are vetting those, at least subset, because we cannot do it, talking about the tens of thousands of those fixes. So we are vetting a subset of those issues alongside, I think the optionality play where we have the patches and the virtual patches and the scripts and the workarounds. So all to say, I think AI has multiple areas it can participate, which eventually you're gonna add or plug in the agentic once you feed that agent with the right information.
Yeah, you touched on it with something with scripting, because that and vetting it with our threat intel team. But that's one thing. In the last year, I have seen the scripts double, and we didn't touch on this yet. But in the landscape exposure management, Gartner is predicting that more than 50% of the landscape won't even be patchable. So we'll have a patch, right? And so we have seen in the last year in our V Society that the scripts have doubled. So that's yeah, a lot of yeah, exactly. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, and a thanks to the community, because and everybody that's here today, because it's the community that's helping to grow this library, right? With all the work that's going on and the collaborations there. So I want to switch gears again here for a second, and it wouldn't be a year of reflection, right, if we didn't take a look back and say, like, what were the lessons that we learned? So kind of more in like a humble spot, when we think about everything that's been going on, the way that the industry has been changing, evolving really quickly. As a company, it's up to us to adapt also and to be a part of that. So what would you say are some of the lessons that we learned this year?
Let's divide it into two aspects. First of all, in terms of the product, and I think it really aligns with the market, but of course from the technical side. For us, of course, we saw that kind of rush or sprint for the consolidation, while also kind of requiring more complex or sophisticated integrations. I think what we learned from that kind of past year was that we had like this closed garden kind of mindset where a unified product does all steps and end to end. And I think what the market showed us, yes, definitely there is room for that, but we also need to start play nasty with the surroundings. And I think this was kind of the main driver for us to go and start developing V2, which is coming up soon. So first of all, kind of changing the mindset on the product and how it kind of aligns with the market demand.
Yeah, for all this consolidation that's happening, right? To have the integrations and so forth, and start working with creating these consolidated solutions for organizations. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. Also, I would say, obviously, we're focusing on the remediation. I think for us to become this, I think the vision or the strategy of the company is to become that remediation standard, because I've been there crafting those policies and strategies is hard. So that kind of, I wouldn't call it change, but focusing on that remediation is somewhat of a shift, or to learn and understand what really why we're being appreciated and recognized for. And we did adaptations. As for the market, I would say definitely one of the biggest shifts was working more efficiently. As a startup, there was always the expectations to double, triple the other way around, or grow at any cost. And I think the market has changed in a way that it's growth alone isn't the only parameter that you are being valued for. So we also did some changes in the organization to be better aligned with that. So it does talk about being more more responsible and more clear where we are focusing our attention versus let's sell wherever people will look into here. It's more like, okay, no, we know our ICP, who's the target audience that is going to get the most benefit. Yes, it's a mass market problem, but still there are places that even us as a vendor are more successful, or the value or the impact is much more meaningful, and going towards those directions versus the others. I think the fact we are a partner-first company, working with partners, with services providers, I think this strategy is proving to work very well, and I wouldn't call it double down because there isn't much of a change, but I think the partnerships we formed in the past year is a real signal that we really believe in that approach. And those partners, I think the nurturing and the training we do together and the joint operation, I think this is one of our strongest force multipliers that we see.
Yeah, I can say firsthand in working with partners and working with clients that it's a staggering data point that 75% of organizations still do it manual, like they still remediate manually. And we talked about this through this whole chat on how, it started off with just seeing a problem, fixing it. It was very manageable because the volume was very low, and this automation is coming to it and how to be more proactive. And our focus on remediation, when I think about this, I think about the use case very specifically, which is helping to reduce the manual workload. Because organizations with security shortages, with the volume that's there, their talent shortages, just do not have the time, do not have the bandwidth. So that's one of the main, in terms of our ICP, one of the main use cases that I see is that we're helping people just, adapt to the fact that there's so much out there right now and how they can tackle that. So as we move into 2025, what's on the horizon for us in 2025?
So moving forward next year, as hinted, we are about to release our next version, which is V2. I think the biggest change there was, while V1 was, the good old, legacy version, kind of a unified view. It was, on the other hand, was quite limited in the sense that we couldn't grow. As the attack surface is growing, V1 wasn't necessarily well adapted to that shift, to that change. And I think we identified it's quite on time, that we need to do this transition. So already, somewhere in the beginning or mid of the year, we started to work on that V2 with that remediation first as a focus. I think just to touch on the remediation, I think our DNA of the company is where we can put our hands on, in the sense of, we found vulnerabilities or misconfiguration in other domains we're going to expand to, such as identity and others. There's always going to be a follow remediation strategy. It could be native capabilities of the product, or it could be even integration. This is what V2 will allow us to do: hybrid play, where we're still going to keep our core capabilities, but also introducing additional capabilities that are going to be a source of additional partnerships in product, tech alliances, OEMs, and others, which will double down and further develop. So I think that, kind of formalizing or crystal clearing the developer position of, you have a problem, you can count on us to be the first responders and to fix it. I think this is where the biggest challenge is going to be seen, and it's going to be across different domains of that attack surface or attack landscape.
Mm-hmm. I speak for many when I say we're very excited for the next phase, for sure, because it's needed in the industry, guaranteed. Well, with that, I wanted to open it up. I don't know if there's been any questions in the chat, or if there's any questions that are coming from the group, but I'd like to open up at this point to see if anybody had any comments or questions that they wanted to share. And I guess, I don't know if, Evan, you can hear us, or if you put anything in. Let's see. Okay. I don't know if we should give it a minute. Apparently there's a delay on the okay. Well, we can come back to it. If any questions come up or in the chat, we can certainly respond to those live, or we can do that. So why don't we just, in wrapping here, first off, thank you, Roy, for the candid discussion and conversation and just sharing about where the industry is going and where we're going as a company as a part of that and the place that we have in vulnerability and exposure management space. Is there, what final words do you want to leave for everybody on the call today?
Yeah, first of all, of course, it's all about the people. So I'm first and thank you and the rest of the team, you, Tanya, and people behind the scene, Agna and Evan, which, had to make it happen. Our partner, first of all, I see Hilton here and others which were able to join. Apparently there was some outage in LinkedIn, so I know some couldn't, but obviously it's recorded, so we'll be able to share that. And to our, large group of customers and partners for trusting us, we take it with great, great serious. That's something that we really appreciate, and we try and strive to do our best every day to kind of live up to the trust. We always welcome the feedback, and I think you can see that one of the things that we are being one of the things that we are seeing in the from you guys is really the appreciation towards our staff, and the support. So definitely something that we take into great investment. And as we work with towards a bigger and better solution and things, we really appreciate your continued support. Feel free, by the way, to connect with me over LinkedIn. I'm very active there, so don't be a stranger.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks for the comment. I was going to try and do an emoji, but I don't know how to do that in this platform. The thumbs up. I'm excited for the platform. So thanks again. Thank you everybody for joining today. We're getting into the final stretch here of 2025, and as much as we're all going to be working really hard, we're also, spending time with our families and enjoying that. So have a wonderful holiday, everybody, and thanks again.
Happy New Year. Bye.
Happy New Year. Yeah, too.